Hi there, this is Yane again bringing you 3 cards that I made using Hero Art's March 2020 Cherry Blossom Kit. When I saw this kit, I said to myself, I have to have it because I really love anything Japanese. I really admire their culture and history. As you can see, this kit comes with a large 6x8 stamp set, cardstock, inks, embossing powder, and coordinating dies. The stamp comes also with a Zen garden, a cherry tree, as well as a pond. It is a beautiful stamp set. For my first card, I am creating a floating window card that measures 9 inches by 6.5 inches and scored at 4.5 inches. Once folded, you will need to cut off one side of the cardstock at 1.5 inches. You will need to cut it twice for top and bottom of the front of your card base, because later on you will need to use that piece together with the acetate. You will see this later on in the video. Then you will be cutting the layers that will go on top. And for that, you will need to cut them at 6/3/8 inches by 1/3/8 inches. And again, you will need two of these because one will go on the top and one on the bottom of your panel. Next, you will cut the decorative paper at 6.25 inches by 1.25 inches. You will also need 2 panels as well, one for the top and the other one for the bottom. Okay, so now for the inside layer, it has to measure 6/3/8 inches by 4/3/8 inches. On this layer, you can stamp your sentiment or write a note to someone. And last, we are going to work on the acetate. This one needs to measure 6/3/8 by 4/3/8. This is a thick acetate from Simon Says Stamps. You need something strong to hold the front of your card. You need a strong acetate because the cardstock is heavy, so you need something strong. Now that you have all the pieces together, you will need to start assembling your card. What you'll see me doing next is adhering the decorative paper to that first layer, which is my white cardstock, and then use a very strong panel. I am using the score tape 1/2 inch wide because I want the panels to stick very strongly to my acetate. Then you want to stick your panel onto the acetate, and you want to do this very carefully, making sure it lines up above the edge of the acetate. Make sure the tape is pressed firmly as you are putting it down on the acetate. Once you have the panels adhered to the acetate, you are going to adhere the acetate onto the top portion of your card base. But don't take the sticky tape off your bottom panel yet. Not until you have adhered the top one, because you don't want it to stick on your inside panel. Then you can remove the sticky tape from the back and bottom of your acetate and adhere it to the gray panel, which is the card base in my case. You can see how nice this looks at this point. Just a note and something that I want you to remember is that to always stamp before you glue the inside layer, because if you glue it first, You are not going to be able to move it around the inside layer. Just in case you make a mistake, you can flip it over and stamp again. Now you see me adhering the panels together onto the acetate. Once you have assembled the card, you are going to see me placing the inside layer in my card base, just so I know where I want to stamp the cherry blossom tree, and with a pencil I am making a mark of where I want my images to go. Then I put the cardstock in my mini MISTI, well, it's not a mini, it's just a regular size, and stamped my image tree using Distress Ink Walnut Stain. Then I clean it and restamp it using Versamark ink to heat emboss it using Simon Says Stamp Fine Detail Clear Embossing Powder, so the tree branches on top keep the same dark brown color. Now moving on to the water. I'm positioning it close to my tree, leaving a small space in between. I first inked up the solid water with dusty blue ink, then took the second layer of the water with the little ripples, and I'm stamping it a few times using Lawn Fawn Yeti pigment ink, which it will give it a nice pattern. I saw Jennifer Maguire do this on her card, and I liked it, so I'm trying it out myself. After trying to work on the water, you will see me working on the tree again, because I wanted the Yeti pigment ink to dry out, and since the color is pigmented, it means that it will take a while to dry. Now I want my tree to look like a cherry blossom, so I'm stamping the first layer with Cotton Candy by Hero Arts, which is a lighter ink, and then I stamped it again with Rose Madder ink, which is a little bit darker, also by Hero Arts. I then grabbed the solid water stamp again and stamped it with Versamark ink. I stamped it again, but this time with clear ultra thick embossing powder, and heat embossed it. This will give it that clear coating and nice shine, like water looking. I personally like the look of it. I hope you do too. See, you can see how shiny that looks. I also wanted to use the other stamps from this kit. So I picked the pagoda and stamped the solid image with Hero Arts soft apricot ink, and the second layer I stamped it with Distress Ink walnut stain. I'm sorry for the background noise. I hope you don't hear it too much. My husband is cutting the lawn right now. I also decided to use the rocks from the same kit, and I stamped that with Distress Ink walnut stain ink. I also wanted some grass around the water and the tree, and for that I'm blending in Hero Arts Green Hills ink and Field Green ink until I was satisfied with the look. I placed the inside layer in my card base just to see how everything was looking through the window opening, and also how I'm going to position the cherry blossom branch over the card base, but I couldn't decide, so I continued working with the inside of my card and the branch with the flowers. I also stamped my Thinking of You sentiment from the same kit using Gina K Designs amalgam ink. Again, I started working with the cherry blossom die and pre-cut a lot of pieces using pink cardstock, white cardstock, as well as brown cardstock for the branches. Then using a sponge, I blended in the Rose Madder ink to add a darker pink towards the center of the flowers. And from the white cardstock, I cut and colored the leaves with Copic markers YG25, which is pea green, and YG67, which is moss. I then cut a bunch of flowers and leaves and glued them onto the branch. Okay, so in the meantime, I'm going to continue working on the card and coloring the leaves and putting some color on the flowers as well. I had to pre-cut a lot of the branches and different colors too in order to color the center of the flowers in white and pink. And that takes the most of the time, pre-cutting and getting ready to work on the card. Okay, so I've decided to add the birds from the Hero Arts Sunflower Field Layering Stamp Set. just to bring some interest to the card. Now you see me positioning and adhering my inside layer to my card base and pressing it down, making sure there are no bumps to this layer. Once I do this, I'm finishing my card by gluing the cherry blossom branch to my card base. And this is basically card number 1. Now I'm going to start working on my last 2 cards. And for this, I'm using the cherry blossom die, the window on the garden fancy die, and the lawn fawn spring showers die set, which I'm only using the sun for both cards. I have pre-cut all of my dies, so I don't spend too much time on this video. The cardstocks were cut measuring 5.5 by 4.25, and again I'm going to stamp the water on my 2 cards. I am not going to explain what I'm doing because the process and the idea are exactly the same as card number 1. In the meantime, I'm going to play some music. Now I'm going to be blending both branches with Distress Ink Vintage Photo and the sun with Distress Ink Mustard Seed. I'm just giving my cards the final touches at this time. I'm just giving the final touches to my cards at this time, getting the idea of where I'm going to be placing everything. I'm coloring the leaves using Copic markers YG25 and YG67. Then I'll be cutting the leaves and gluing them onto the branch. The process is basically the same as my card number 1. Except for the cherry blossom die, because I'm placing it inside of my cards, because my thinking process here is using the window on the garden die and pretending that I'm looking outside the window and looking at this scenery. That kind of was my idea behind it. I'm just gluing the leaves here for my branches, just the final touches right now that I'm giving. For the inside frame of my cards, I'm going to be using Elizabeth Craft Designs dies and die cutting the 2 largest frames and gluing them to the inside layer. Next, I'm going to be decorating the center of my flowers with Nouveau Glitter Drops Ruby Slippers and Cotton Candy Bicycles to add some dimension to my cards. I'm just gluing the branches right now and adding the sun. Same process for both cards. I hope you cannot hear the noises so much behind me. I'm sorry if you do. I didn't know my husband was going to be cutting the lawn at the same time I was going to do this video. Okay, now I'm gonna start working on my sentiments. And for this, I use the oval frame from Hero Arts Holiday Tags frame cuts. These are old frames that I have had for a couple of years now. I don't know if they're still selling them. And the frame that I used is the one that looks like a cloud. For one of my cards, I stamped the Live Life in Full Bloom sentiment. And for my other card, I stamped the Thank You sentiment using Gina K Designs Amalgam ink. This is a very nice ink by Gina because it can work with any markers. Copic, Spectrum Noir, which are both alcohol inks. It also can work on your watercolors, even color pencils. And you can also heat emboss your work, and it will not bleed. They'll remain a true color, your colors, which is nice. You don't have to be changing inks to apply alcohol inks or watercolors to your work. Now you see me decorating the center of my flowers. Just to give it some dimension to my cards. And here I'm placing my sentiments onto my tags. After using this ink with my sentiments, I proceeded to heat emboss my sentiments and glue them and glue the Live Life in Full Blossom inside my blue card and the thank you on the outside of my base card. Which is my white card. I thought at this time that my card needed something different in the front of my blue card. I'm just gluing my sentiments at this time on my cards. I'm also adding some shimmer to my cherry blossom flowers using Nuvo glitter gloss. And for the outside of my glue card, I'm using this thing like scalloped stickers that I've been trying to make use of them. So I decided to use the black scalloped one, and I placed it outside my blue window card. I thought that card needed something. I didn't like the way it looked. All nothing, just very plain on the front. I'm just adding this sticker to the front of my card. So there you have these 3 cards for the day. I hope you enjoyed watching and you got inspired. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Until next time, and be safe.